This definitely just says, hey, you better be playing at a table with spellcasters, because if you're not, this subclass stopped working 8 levels ago. So you make it count. Make it matter here.
Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we will be talking about we're going to start our wizard series now, beginning with the first wizard subclass. Which one is this? Abjuration.
Yeah, there's one for each of the schools of magic, and then there's a couple others because they ran out of schools of magic and they needed to make more wizard subclasses. So then we get
I don't
things like
think they
Blade
needed
Song,
to.
and there's like 9 of them or something, plus all the extras. That's
You know,
it's a ton.
they needed. I don't know that they needed to make all the schools of magic subclasses. Like, yeah,
I get the idea, right, of wizards being the mathematicians. So the different
right.
studies of math, in this case magic, is like the different schools of thought here, right? Um, I do think it works out pretty well as far as like they kind of group spells together and try and empower those groups of spells in a way that school wants that's unique from the others. I like that premise a lot. Now, some of them stumble a lot more than others. Abjuration is one that I adore deeply. I don't know how good it is. I've played the option. It's really, really fun if you want to do a non-standard wizard. But you do end up making in a lot of the like core, really busted abjuration spells as your bread and butter, and then you in the mid-tier start to be like, oh, I'm actually just a regular wizard that never uses my defensive feature.
See, what I like in editions past, they had school specialization, which I could have gotten on board with, and have the subclasses be like the the non-school subclasses that we have now, perhaps some additional ones.
It would be really cool to be a abjuration based blade song versus a enchantment based
Exactly.
blade
Right.
song, right? That could be a really neat differentiator. I get why they did this because the subclasses were, from my understanding, relatively new to this edition. Like this
Mm.
version of it, where like a whole pillar of how you play is just what subclass you pick. It kind of replaced prestige classes and some other things of editions of old.
Yeah.
I get why they did it this way. I agree, though, that I think it would have been possibly cooler to have a second customizable option, right? Wizards get kind of 2 subclasses. They get their
Right.
specialty, and then they get their subclass. But alas,
However, I
that's what we're
do
working with.
think they did a fine job for the most part with like it's not like with specialization. Okay, you get extra spells of this school. Maybe you are forbidden from casting spells of this other school, but they could have gone that way with this and called it a day. But they do have some interesting and unique features.
Yeah, I think most of the schools of magic outside of like necromancy, you will be really pleased with how the school interacts with the spells within the school. I think there is some good thought that's gone into it. Shall we
All
dive
right,
in?
well, let's get in abjuration.
All right, so at second level, you get 2 features. All of the school-based ones get the Solvent feature. So Abjuration Solvent is beginning when you select the school at second level. The gold and time you spend to copy an Abjuration spell into your spellbook is halved. I'm not going to lie to you. I've never once played with these rules.
Yeah.
Not a single time. I am almost always playing I add a spell. I had 2 spells in my spellbook when I level up. And that's the only time I
Right.
get spells as a wizard. And that's the only time I tend to get my wizard spells when they're here. And I've never had anyone ask. I've never had anyone like try and find more spells because they were just happy with what they were getting. And frankly, if they do get more spells, they don't need the help. Like they don't need the extra juice, this extra whole little mini game where they can fetch out spells and do all other kinds of crazy stuff that other subclasses can't. Like a sorcerer can't decide to spend some extra gold and learn a new spell. So I don't think it's really necessary, and I do really kind of hope it goes away. I hope that we don't see this
I
reprinting.
think this is going away. Um, from what I've read, they're like revamping the whole magic system with everybody pretty severely. But
It'll be great to talk about it when we get there.
yes,
I won't miss this element of it. The actual feature you get at second level is called Arcane Ward, and this is the reason to play Abjure. At second level, you weave magic around yourself for protection. When you cast an Abjuration spell of first level or higher, you can simultaneously use a strand of the spell's magic to create a magical ward on yourself that lasts until you finish a long rest. The ward has hit points equal to twice your wizard level plus your intelligence modifier. Whenever you take damage, the ward takes the damage instead. If this damage reduces the ward to 0 hit points, you take any remaining damage. While the ward has 0 hit points, it can't absorb damage, but its magic remains. When you cast an Abjuration spell of first level or higher, the ward regains a number of hit points equal to twice the level of the spell. Once you create a ward, you can't again until you finish a long rest. I like this
Yeah,
feature a
this is the
lot.
big one.
It's really neat. There's nothing
It's
really in the game that works like this. It's sort of
no,
its own unique little pillar of defensive nature. It's really novel.
and I mean, let's just get the abuse out of the way. Cameron wrote a build using this, and I'm sure he's not the first to think of this. In fact, I think I've read it other places. But getting dipping into Warlock, getting the invocation with
Armor of
the
Shadows.
Armor of Shadows, where you can just spam mage armor over and over again. And so there's that, or you can keep feeding your magical ward.
And like honestly, I don't see that being like an abuse case that much, just because I don't necessarily still think it's that powerful. The core limiting factor of Arcane Ward is its total hit point, right? So you're
Yeah.
basically getting twice your wizard level plus your int mod temporary hit points that are better than temporary hit points because they shrug off damage and don't make you make concentration checks, which is pretty relevant, right? This is the second character taking the damage for you, which is pretty notable. But like in the case of refilling your ward all the time, it's kind of feel like a better version of Fiendish Vigor, and that's not that
Well,
powerful, especially
that's
on classes not trying to take damage that frequently, right?
yeah, that's another. What is Fiendish Finger doing again?
It's the False Life at Will one, so to a
False
D4
Life.
plus 4 over and over again. So it's like 8 temp HP all the time.
Right. So I mean, that's the other thing. Because this ward has its own hit points, it's not your hit points. You can stack things like Fiendish Figure on top of it. You can stack. Well, I think he combined it with Armor of Agathis. So you're not taking any damage. Your ward is. They're getting the crap blasted out of them. You're continuing to feed your ward. That also, I mean, and we've already discussed what is it? Armor of Agathis already, the temporary hit points stack on top of something like aid that gives you like additional like real hit points.
Yeah.
It's yeah, a lot of fun to be had with that.
It's interesting. I don't
Yeah.
know how good it is still, right? Because a giant stack of hit points doesn't kill anyone. A giant stack of hit points just takes a bunch of damage, and that's cool. That can be fun. That can be a neat, unique twist for this wizard archetype to take. I like this option a lot. It's one of my favorite wizard subclasses because it is really far removed from what an average wizard usually wants to be doing. If
Yeah.
you're just like sitting back, slinging fireballs, throwing off enchantment spells, banishing things, polymorphing things, hideous laughing things, you're not going to be using these hit points at all sometimes. You'll go encounters and encounters without spending any arcane ward hit points sometimes. If you do take a couple of points of damage here or there, it's not like maximizing the effectiveness of it. And I do think that character can be fine. I do think you can play just a regular bog standard wizard that goes, I'll cast shield every once in a while, that'll give me my ward up, and that'll help me, protect a concentration check that I really want to make. Maybe you're like a haste build, and you really don't want to drop haste, so you just take an extra, 15 hit points on top of your regular pool that you get to I can afford to take a loose arrow or two before I have to worry about dropping concentration. That can be a fine position to be in. I'm more
That's true. I
interested.
didn't even consider the concentration aspect. I mean, if the
Take a
ward's
limit of it.
taking the damage, you're not.
Yes. It also means like if the ward takes, even if it like spills over, right? Let's say you take 30 damage, if it struggles out 20 of it, that's a way lower DC concentration
Right.
check. That's really great news for you. I think more often what I want to do with this though is figure out some cute little frontline tanky wizard kind of option. This is a really fun thing to multi-class with, even though you do want most of your levels in wizard for that durability, because it gets better the more and higher level
Sure.
abjuration spells you cast, right? I want to do like dwarf getting their armor and weapon proficiencies with a hammer and just like beating things that have levels 1 through 5 with this sounds like a blast to me. Now, it doesn't scale well at all. You just turn into a full caster in the mid tiers, which is fine. But like that's the direction I would really love to run with this, and I have before in the past. And I would recommend you try out if you're out there like I want to play a wizard. I don't really want to play the spellbook backline, enchanter or illusionist or anything like that. I do think this is a really cool differentiating option that will make you feel unique amongst the wizards out there. Really powerful feature, really cool feature.
This is a hell of a feature to get a level 2 because I mean, yeah, you can keep going full wizard, which is very advisable, but it also gives you the freedom to multi-class while retaining this cool thing.
This isn't something that like I think is that overtly powerful on its own. It's 7 hit points.
Yeah.
7 hit points isn't the most hit points in the world. I don't necessarily want to immediately reach for like, oh, how do I maximize these 7 hit points at level 3? I probably want to get like, 15, 20 hit points out of this thing before I really want to start. Okay, well, now that I'm comfortably, 7, 8 levels in Wizard, I'm okay spending I don't need my 6th level slot next level, or maybe I don't get a spell level bump next level. Now I'll grab 2 levels in Warlock, grab a couple short rest spell slots to help me get more extra uses of shield and stuff like that. Then you can kind of find ways to pad it out better. Because, like, at the end of the day, hit points, again, don't kill people. So they will help you do some cool durability stuff on a class that normally doesn't have it, but it isn't going to be, like, a feature that I'm going to say is at all shifting the needle on how powerful an encounter is, I think, or how powerful a character is.
All right, where do we go from here?
We get projected ward. So this is sort of like graduates them into the regular wizard realm. Starting at 6th level, when a creature you can see within 30 feet of you takes damage, you can use a reaction to cause your ward to absorb the damage. If the damage is due to the ward is 0 hit points, the ward of the creature takes any remaining damage. Now you just get to share your ward with everyone. And when you can share one, you can now just be the full caster backline blaster and not give a crap about if you're in frontline at all, because someone can use these hit points.
Yeah, that's a nice option to have. I'm not thrilled how like encourage you to change. Like, it doesn't enhance what you were doing before. It kind of more encourages you to change your play pattern.
I would frame it as it gives you more opportunity to be flexible. I think this sort of takes you from more linear frontline trying to take damage yourself and moves you more into the flexibility and dynamic encounters for you to have the hit points when you need it, for allies that are out of position or get caught out or something gets on top of them they weren't supposed to. You can then also have this reflexive tool that can defend them in case of emergencies, right?
Yes, I mean, the flexibility is appreciated, but if I'm going straight through as the Abjuration Wizard and I have an idea of how I want to play him, I kind of want things that move that idea forward.
The unfortunate reality of the subclass, though, is that it doesn't do that, right? It doesn't give you melee options. It doesn't give you extra attack.
Right.
I would have loved for this option to get extra attack. You don't even have to make the extra attacks better. Just being able to go martial wizard with this, I think would have been a very clean route to explore, just so you can try to do frontline melee stuff. It doesn't, though. And because it doesn't, in the upper tiers, you do need to still function. And I think this definitely helps it function better. This gives the builds where you do grab mage armor at will. It means, I've always warded hit points. Just 100% of the time, I will find a way to use these warded hit points, agnostic as whether or not I'm the target or not. And that does majorly improve the feature. Like, I'm not going to lie. It makes it a lot more useful to be like, crap, that's 25 damage incoming. I'm going to give them my ward so they stay up an extra round so they can either flee or get a save out or something else, It's also simple and easy to digest. I do think this option,
yes,
it's a little bit much to track, but beyond the tracking, I do think this is a very simple wizard option if you're looking for a simple wizard option. I blame Armstrong. Improved Aberration is what we get at 10th level. At 10th level, when you cast an Abjuration spell that requires you to make an ability check as part of casting that spell, as encounter spell or dispel magic, you add your proficiency bonus to that ability check.
Okay. Yeah, I guess if you're casting a lot of counter spells or dispel magics, then you'll appreciate this.
Yeah. I do think there's some power here at particularly spellcast heavy tables, which tend to be the more powerful ones. These aren't going to be ones running a lot of monsters straight out of the monster menu, but more so like tuning encounters with player spells in mind as the minigame of counterspell and silvery barbs and all that going on. I hate that a lot of the time. I'm not really a huge fan of it, but this is a feature that plays in that space, right?
I mean, dispel magic, that can work. You don't need a spell casting heavy game for that.
Yeah, I just don't like the spell magic is a thing that comes up once every dungeon, once every adventure sometimes. It's not something that you're going to be busting out every single encounter. And having a whole feature that you're not using every single encounter, I don't love. So at some tables where you are using it every single encounter, it's great. It's just a reasonable upgrade that helps cheaper counter spells counter higher level spells. And at a lot of the tables, it's going to feel like I didn't get a 10th level feature. Honestly, that's okay though, because you're a wizard and you have 6th level spells coming up next. So like, you're not going to miss this little dip in power. And at the tables where it is powerful, yeah, you'll feel great about it.
Sure.
It's simple. It's easy. It's not exciting, though. We end on spell resistance. So starting at 14th level, you have advantage on saving throws against spells and resistance the damage of spells.
This is pretty cool.
This definitely just says, hey, you better be playing at a table with spellcasters, because if you're not, this subclass stopped working 8 levels ago. So you make it count. Make it matter here. This is one of those features where I'm like, what table you're playing at matters a lot. And I do think there will be tables where this won't be a feature. And I do think there'll be other tables where this is the best feature in the game. So it's just
Well,
gonna
I'll
vary.
agree with you on the latter, but I don't think there are any tables where it won't be a feature at all. I mean, spellcasting is part of the game.
Surprisingly few monsters cast spells.
I understand, but they're rival spellcasters. Those come up.
Yeah, not every dungeon, not every
Not
encounter.
every dungeon, but I'm saying, like you said, not a feature
Not a
at
feature
some table.
95% of the time.
Yeah.
I think there will be some tables that is a reality. I think at the Monster Hunter tables where you're going against big beasties, if you're going to slay a bunch of demons, if you're going to kill a bunch of, specific kinds of creature types, undeads get liches, I guess, and some death knights get some dark magic. But a lot of species and races and creatures don't cast any spells. And in those settings, this sure doesn't do anything at all. So
Yeah.
all things considered, though, like this is on top of Arcane Ward passively improving as the game progresses. This thing at 14th level is you got a 31 hit point Arcane Ward, or more likely, 28 plus 5 is 33 hit point Arcane Ward. That's going to be a robust little feature. You're going to be able to fill it up no problem. Shield's going to be a powerful spell. All the Abjuration spells you already want to be casting, they're pretty freaking good. The best of them are, Shield, Counterspell, Absorb Elements is a banger. There's really no shortage of flexible Abjuration spells that you're going to be pretty happy to put on your sheet. And this just a little bit better. Refilling the ward isn't a priority ever, but it's a thing that you'll do from time to time and feel pretty good about it whenever you're doing it cheaply, or just like as part of playing the game. I think this often gets a solid B. It's a really unique feature at level 2, and past that, I don't think it's that amazing, but hey, 6 levels a real upgrade, and past that, you're a wizard, so who gives a shit what you get in these features?
I mean, the ward stays up until you finish a long rest. So if you can get through a fight without it going down, and you can spam mage armors, then that's something that you can keep replenishing throughout the day.
It is the kind of thing, if you want this to be that feature, you do have to invest. I think this feature is substantially better when you invested it that way.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess I'll agree with your B that the Arcane Ward is doing the vast bulk of the heavy lifting here.
Yeah.
And while it can be, like you said, invested in, it's if you're just doing this casually, it's maybe not going to be like super amazing, but like what? I'm just trying to think. Like you're still going to stick with wizard because it's wizard.
Yeah, your opportunity spells are amazing.
Yeah.
I think a good way to think about this is if you wanted to just like play the Abjure Wizard, I think that you're gonna just no Warlock nonsense, just playing it as written.
Right.
This is a way to defend your concentration on some powerful concentration effects like Banishment, which happens to be an Abjuration spell that you're happy to cast. You're going to be a defensive wizard that is decent at keeping themselves alive, and at 6th level is going to be decent at keeping the party alive. And that's the vast majority of it. And honestly, it's fine at doing that job. You can invest in it more, you don't have to, and I think that's a passable beat, right? And if someone can just take 20 levels of Abjure and be a decent defensive wizard that does the counter spells, that does the shields, that does the absorb elements, that does the banishment stuff, you're going to have a fine time.
All right. Well, there you go. That was the School of Abjuration Wizard. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. We got a lot of wizard fans in the audience there. Let us know your views on the Abjuration Wizard down in the comments below, and whatever else you want to say. We love to hear your comments. That's that. So, thank you, and like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.